Welcome to Qualys Global IT Asset Inventory. In this video series, we're going to get started with Global IT Asset Inventory and give you a basic overview of what it does. Major objective is to provide visibility to your organization across all of your environments. We're going to give you a sensor summary. So what are the mechanisms that we use to collect the data that will populate into our platform? We'll talk a little bit more about passive sensor and how we can get an idea of those devices that are connecting to our network that may be unmanaged. Additionally, we're going to spend time on how Qualys categorizes and normalizes your data at the operating system level, software level, and hardware level. Finally, we'll discuss the lifecycle enhancements that Qualys takes on the data that we have in the platform so you can make intelligent business decisions. Modern IT environments face a pretty good challenge. 20 years ago, when you were trying to discover the assets within your organization, you could pretty easily do that. You could run a map or you could run Nmap and you can find your assets. You could then start scanning them and verifying compliance, and it was a little bit simpler of a time. But now you have assets deployed everywhere, right? You have assets in the cloud, on premise. You have your workstations that are mobile potentially, could be moving around from one branch office to another, or even to make things more difficult, maybe they're on the road and not connecting to your corporate environment. You also have different types of other IP-enabled assets that may be part of your network. And so this makes the task of having a good inventory quite difficult. Visibility is important for both the security team and the IT team. Security team obviously needs to have an understanding of what's been deployed across the organization so they can appropriately measure threat and the vulnerability program. They also need to know which assets have been deployed in cloud architectures and understand the risk that may be posed to the organization when configurations aren't meeting the standards of the organization or industry standards. IT teams also need to understand visibility and see what's part of the network because they are managing the network and the network access control, what assets have been deployed, what software has been deployed, what software and hardware and operating systems are end of life or end of support. And this would allow them to appropriately plan for the future. So having a good inventory is the start. It's step one of these processes. Your organization may have gaps. First, within assets. Initially, how many devices do we have within our environment? Which ones are managed and unmanaged? What types of software and hardware have we deployed, and who's logging into those devices? What applications are deployed, and what are patterns of network traffic? From the vulnerability perspective, how many devices are not in the vulnerability management program? So if we discover new assets, are we managing those and do we understand their vulnerability posture? How close are those unmanaged devices to our vulnerable devices? And how many software versions are we behind? So do we have to upgrade our software? Are we patching appropriately? And from the compliance perspective, what unapproved or open source software are we using within the environment? Do we have any different databases that have been deployed and which versions are deployed? Are any of them end of life or end of support? And so these are all important things to understand across the organization and be able to manage, because this is a lot of data to manage and normalize. So the point of this particular application called Global IT Asset Inventory is to provide a single source of truth for your IT and security teams. It allows for a complete, and that's an important word, a complete set of data, meaning we're going to collect data from various locations using various tools, continuous. So we're going to actually update our content regularly using Qualys sensors, structured. So we're not only going to take this complete data that is continuously populating the Qualys platform, but we're actually going to normalize and categorize it so that it makes sense and so that you can manage it. And finally, we're going to enrich that data. So not only are we going to take the data that we have, but we're going to enrich it with timelines for things like end of life and end of support. This will help us improve our security and compliance postures. What types of assets do we have? What do we need to eliminate? What do we need to upgrade? And how can we appropriately plan for the future? Thank you for watching this video on Global IT Asset Inventory.